Everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be all about some of my favorite magical systems. I am a big fan of fantasy book and magic in general, and magical school, really. So I wanted to talk about some of my favorite ones to give you some recommendations, but I would also love to hear some of yours, so leave some in the comment section for me. I always need more books for my TBR. I'm going to do a top 5. It's not my top 5 favorite of all time, just 5 that I really enjoyed that I want to recommend. It's probably going to be an ongoing series if you guys enjoy it, and I will be adding more and more until I've went through all my favorite ones. So, number 1, they're not in any particular order, but let's be real, it wouldn't be a video about magic system without talking about Brandon Sanderson. In general, he's just really fantastic, and what I think I like, and a lot of people like, is that every single magic system is so different, but really, really well explained and also really well developed. Because I tend to prefer hard magic systems compared to like vague ones. I always tend to call it magical realism when it's like one with nature and very vague and it's just like weird sentences and like it's not explained, there's no logic behind it. I feel like it ends up being kind of weak whenever like, oh, they save the world with like this magical sentences that just they think about in the moment, you know? I don't like that. I like when it's structured, when it's explained and there's like logic behind it. So let's go back to Brandon Sanderson. I obviously need to mention the Mistborn Trilogy. I have read the first trilogy and I've read the 3 books in the second series. The 4th one is coming out at the end of the year. We'll be reading it. I personally prefer the first one. The second one is more like Western, which less my style, but still enjoyable. This is such a beloved series for a good reason. First off, it has its usual strength of, again, magical system, but the politics, the world building, everything is intrinsically linked. Was I close? We'll blame it on the French. And it's based on metals. So basically people that have magical powers have to ingest metals to burn them. And they can only use them in a very, very specific manner. So for example, some people can push on metal, some other people can pull on metal, and that's all they can do. So they usually have one power, but then you have the Mistborns who can use all of them at the same time. And I feel like it's one series that you can't even understand the magic system until you have read the whole trilogy, and you just discover more and more as you go through it. So I can't explain more without spoiling anything, so I'm not going to. But the first book is essentially a heist for anyone that doesn't know. So they just want to try and overthrow the empire, which, you know, something very simple. And it's just really, really enjoyable. And then you get at the end the Sanderson avalanche, like everything starts happening towards the end, especially in the 3rd book. And there's a reason it's so popular. I really, really enjoyed it. Would recommend it, of course. So definitely one of my favorite kind of magic system because once again, things make sense. They really do. The second one I wanted to mention by him is Warbreaker. This is technically currently a standalone. It can be read on its own, but the author has planned a 2nd book that's supposed to come out kind of soon actually, because he mentioned that he wanted to do it after Stormlight Archive 5, which is coming out next year. So we might see it soon enough. This one is one of the 2 books in here that the magic system is really complicated to explain. It's almost faster to read the book than listening to me, but bear with me a little bit. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's based on color and it's also based on breath. So it's kind of like a soul. People are born with one and then you can give it away to someone, and whenever people have a certain amount they can start using magical powers in a certain way, so they can like awaken an object, so give them life. For example, there's a talking sword in here, who's one of my favorite characters, and there's also people that come back from death and they're like essentially gods. So if you like the trope of like gods walking among us, I really enjoyed one of the god characters that you're following. He's very nonchalant about the whole thing, doesn't seem to care about anything. And the whole book is just a quick read. It gives you a really good idea of his usual style. Once again, you get the ending that will blow your mind, and I, like I said, tend to recommend this as a first book by him. It's available for free as a PDF on his website if you want to get it that way. But yes, definitely really, really enjoyed that one also. But yes, the magic system can't be explained much better than this without spoiling everything, but highly recommend that book. I'm not going to mention anything else by him because the other one I would think about mentioning would be the Stormlight Archive series, but I've only read the first 2 books, and I feel like with Sanderson, you have to like finish the whole series to really have a grasp on the magic system because, again, it's revealed throughout the series, so I don't feel like I understand it at all yet, so in the future, probably. Let's talk about Jade City. I have only read the first book. The second one is on my TBR for this year. It will be happening. I ended up enjoying this so much more than I expected. We actually read this on the Patreon book club and everyone really enjoyed it. It's it's gonna compare actually to like Godfather with Kung Fu and magic. It's essentially two families that are trying to control a city, so they fight against each other. And the magic system is based on like jade stones. Some people are born with magical abilities and they have to carry on them jade stones to use their magic. But it's not a magic system that like the person that hoards the most stone is the most powerful, because there is a limit. You have a limit. You're born with a certain amount of power, but you can also train. So a little bit of magical school in there to increase your control and become stronger. I really enjoyed that twist. And I think that what surprised me in here is that I ended up caring more about the characters than truly the story, which I'm usually more an action-driven kind of person, but this one is a really good balance between character-driven and action-driven. And I just really ended up caring a lot about the family, and I'm really curious to see where things are gonna go, hence book 2 happening hopefully soon. Pretty chunky, but it's a pretty fast read, and I didn't see some of the twist coming, and I am still so mad and so angry and so nervous to continue. That's probably why I've been like pushing it back a little bit, but I highly recommend this one. The second magic system that is really complicated to explain, even though I will attempt to do it, is from the Broken Earth Trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. So the first book is the 5th season, and you have the 2 other ones. This series was so unique, so different. It takes a little while to get into it because the writing style is a bit more unique. One point of view is actually in the second person. So you follow a character who has magical power. In this world, it's a really, really bad thing. If people figure out that you have magic, they will kill you, or they will send people after you, and they will like drag you to like kind of a school, but kind of not. She has been hiding her magical powers. She got married and she had 2 kids, but one day while she's away, her husband figure out that their son has magic, and he kills him, and then he kidnaps their daughter. So the story is basically this woman trying to get her daughter back. So like I said, there is a magic school, which big fan of, and the magic system is based on like geology, which I had never read anything quite like that. I also really like that even though it's a fantasy series, it's kind of post-apocalyptic or apocalyptic. The world is ending again, and the magic kind of vague, but I feel like it starts more structured and then becomes softer throughout the series, but not in a bad way. I was still definitely a fan of it. So like I said, it's like based on geology, so people can do good and bad things. For example, they can stop an earthquake, but they can also like make the air around someone get really cold, like basically kill people. And another thing that's interesting is that the magical school doesn't really make you like more powerful. Like the magic that you are born with is what you have. You just have to learn to control it. I also really enjoyed the characters, and there's a side one that was really likable, and I think this is going to be a fantastic series to pick up if you have yet to do it. It's fairly popular, but it's definitely worth the shot. The last book for this video, but definitely not the last one on my list of favorite magic system, I had to give a shout out to is Dark Materials series, because I grew up reading this and then I reread it as an adult, and it was even better than I remember. So in this version of our world, people are born with a demon, and it's not like a demon, it's like part of their soul, and has an animal shape. So you're basically best friend. As a kid, they can transform in whatever shape that they want, animal shape, and then as an adult, while you go through puberty, basically their shape becomes fixed. You know, it says something about your personality, but it also influences what you can do with your life, because if your demon becomes a dolphin, well, you can't live in the mountain, right? You have to stay close to them physically. So the first book, you're following Lyra, and children in Oxford are disappearing, and she wants to figure out what happens if they have to go in the north to try and save them. There's also a talking bear, who's probably my favorite character in this series. He's very grumpy but likable. And even though it sounds like a children's book with the first book, I feel like it becomes so much more. And that's why I was saying that I reread as an adult, and now I understand why there was so much controversy when it came out. A little bit like Harry Potter, you know how religious people didn't want their kids to read it because witchcraft. In this case, yes, the book sounds like it's against religion, but it's against organized religion, which it's a completely different thing. And yeah, reading it as an adult, definitely even more impactful. I feel like as a kid, so much went way above my head. And I did, as a kid, cry at the end of the last book. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I definitely cried as a kid. And I did it as an adult, but it still really affected me, and it's one of my favorite fantasy series ever, and definitely a great magic system. Again, I can't spoil more, but the whole like demon magic thing, super interesting. Also, compared to the other ones that I've mentioned, it's a little bit softer of a magic system, so that might be something you are interested in trying. So this is my first 5 best magic system in fantasy. I'm sure I'm going to be doing more. If you are interested, please let me know, and I will be very happy because, like I said, it's one of my favorite tropes. So I've read a lot, but mostly I'm using this as an excuse to get some of your recommendations because I feel like I haven't read that many fantasy books this year, and I'm definitely in the mood, so it's going to start happening for the second half of 2022. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe. I will be putting more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, and I will see you in an upcoming video very soon. Bye.
Kiss on a cheek or loving just like